sophomore, in the junior and senior year, I was in the UK.
Right. But then you came back to the States?
I moved back to Hopkins after that, and I actually moved in with Drew's mom and his brother. Drew was in South Africa at the time.
Yes.
And then the following fall, Drew and I both went to University of Wisconsin.
So yeah, the other thing, we had that hockey show a few weeks ago, and Tony Ceruno and I talked about it. You're an honorary member of a lot of things, because he said we should have Wally on. He's sort of an honorary member of this hockey team too.
Yeah, we were initially going to move my sophomore year, and so I didn't play. And then we ended up, because of the school situation over there, we didn't move until my junior year. But
so do you have a high school degree from some school over in England somewhere?
I have what they're called A levels.
Okay.
And they're just you pass exams to get A levels, so it's the equivalent.
Yeah. Did you attend much school over there, and how did all that go?
School was very challenging over there, because only about 80 or 20%, of the kids stay in traditional school after sophomore year. And so it's not like college prep, it's more like undergrad during high school. And so it's pretty challenging, and if you don't get the grades, you don't stay in. And so it was kind of like a do or die situation, that if I didn't stay in, I was gonna go home and get an ED and probably not go to college. So
now, so Drew, do you recall staying in touch with Wally during this time when he moved over there?
No, not a lot. Well, I don't think we talked very much when you were in England. I mean, it was a lot harder back then, you know? You had to send letters and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we've gotten into that with some groups of friends. Like, I mean, Marnie and I wrote letters to each other in college. But yeah, you're right. It was a challenge. What were you going to say, Wally?
Nothing. The phone in the UK was very expensive, so making a phone call to the States was inordinately just not possible.
Yeah. So what sent you to South Africa right after high school, Drew?
Yeah. So I ended up. So my dad was really active in Rotary, and so when we were younger, we had a bunch of exchange students. They went to Hopkins. Magnus Ulander, Kari Vorla was one from Finland.
Oh yeah.
And so, you know, from that, I always thought that would be a cool thing to do. So I went on. I basically redid my senior year there. Though I didn't spend a ton of time in school. I traveled a lot when I was there, and I didn't choose to be there. So when I was there, so they had their first free and fair election in '90, and I was there 88, 89. So it was pretty intense. I mean, there was like violence. There was like a 4-week period where I was within a mile of a bomb going off, you know, every week. So it was interesting times for sure.
Were you in Johannesburg?
I was in Durban.
Okay.
So in Durban was pretty liberal. They were all anti-apartheid, at least all the people I stayed with, and they were all pushing for elections. And there was so at the time, the Zulu was the main ethnic group in the area, and the ANC had like a branch called the UDF, and so there was a huge sort of battle between the two of them. There's like faction fighting, so there was a lot of violence that was happening.
Wow. Have you been back?
No, I never have.
Okay.
Never have. I'd love to. I mean, I'm still in touch with a lot of my friends and you know, families from then.
Oh no.
So, you know, I hear, but a lot of them left. They live in Canada.
Yeah.
Hey, Drew, was Linda Clutie a Rotary exchange student? She was from South Africa.
Yeah, she was. And in fact, she was there. I met her like on the switch out, like on the swap out. And I think I ended up meeting her family or something when she was there, when I went there.
Is there any way to find someone like her after all these years? I was friends with her.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
She's probably on Facebook. I don't know. I haven't thought about her, to be perfectly honest. I should look her up. That'd be fun.
Yeah, we were
Okay.
pals with Linda. That's funny.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No
So,
trace.
okay, so you came back from South Africa, and did you go to college at Madison after that?
Yep. Yeah, I went to Madison.
I think
Yeah.
36 people from our graduating class went to Madison.
A lot,
Fact.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, Marnie, you missed the show. Marnie was gone the week that we had Dave Green and Bob Gollin on.
It was an accident.
Mhm.
I went to Oregon. I went to Oregon and I ended up at the beach and there was no internet access. It was a disaster. But anyhow, I'm sure it was a great show.
Well, but we covered much of the history of Green Daddy and the Jokes, the rock
Mhm.
band that Drew was also a part of. So two questions about that. Do you have any good memories from playing in that band? And did you live in that house with those guys too?
Yeah, so I lived my freshman year. I lived with Dave Green. He and I lived together. And then the year after that, we lived in the Pinckney house. Wally was there too.
Okay.
And that was where we had lots of parties. And yeah, I have a bajillion good memories of that time. It was a blast. I love Madison.
Do you still play?
Not as much. I do occasionally. Like I play guitar at some friends' weddings, and I've kind of picked up piano again. My son's into piano, so I've been playing that a little bit, but not as much as I used to.
Okay, Wally, before we get into your entrepreneurial activities in college.
Yeah, that's a nice word. I appreciate that. It's more of a compliment than an accuracy. But.
Right. But do you have any memories of seeing Green Daddy and the Jokes, and do you have any stories you can share from the Pinckney house?
Well, the Pinckney house, we called it the Pink Palace, and there was kind of a mythical place. We all believed that Hunter Thompson and all of the beat writers had stayed there at some time.
Sure.
And so Paul Beneke and I were usually like in the crowd because we were the two members of the household that were not members of the band.
Right.
But the big memory, there were lots of parties that I recall, and one of my favorite memories is Green Daddy and the Jokes playing the Grateful Dead song "Ripple" electrically, because they had so many requests for it. But Drew,
Yeah.
what was the name of that album that you guys were on?
Inner Circle of the Elk's Head. So at the time,
Inner Circle of the Elks Head, because
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, just at the time, like burning a CD wasn't something you could do at home. So there was a group of musicians in the area that sort of banded together, and we all pitched in, and we each recorded a couple songs, and then got a DVD or a CD made, and so yeah, that was fun.
It was.
But the band, you were kind of the biggest band in town.
Yep.
Yeah, we would pack.
You were the
bars.
headliners on that album.
Yeah, we would the chamber. We played the chamber like all the time, and it would just be packed. I remember playing, and you don't have a bar is like different from a musical venue. Playing at the Rat was fun, and playing on the terrace because you could see everyone. But at the chamber, you couldn't tell. There's just like people in front of you, and there would be a break, and you'd walk out, and the place was just jam packed. It was such a crazy experience. But it was fun.
And I do recall the chamber liked having Green Daddy and the Jokes because your crowd tended to drink more than other crowds.
Yeah, we had a partying crowd.
It's definitely true that so one of my roommates in college also was in a band on that CD, the Dirges. And he met you guys, and his great frustration was that his band could not become as big as Green Daddy and the Jokes. Like he was mystified by how they could not attract the same crowds. But yeah, that was a big deal at the time. I totally forgot the name of that CD, Inner Circle of the Elks Head. Do you still have any copies of those buzzing around your?
Yeah, I do somewhere. I don't think I have a CD player though.
Right. Oh, that's so cool.
I
So
went to Pinckney house.
yes, that's right.
I visited there. We used to go at Georgetown. It was so boring that like once or twice I would grab a girlfriend. I'm like, let's go to Madison and go to a party. And we'd like get in the car and drive to your house.
Yeah, just a short little
12
Jaunt.
tour.
hours.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So speaking of entrepreneurial efforts, while you made the sort of unique choice at some point in college, now this would have been maybe our senior year of going into business, of opening this bar, Bull Feathers. You want to tell us how you got involved in that?
Yeah, there were 5 partners at Bull Feathers, and 2 of us worked at. Do you guys remember Stillwater's? Or do you, Jason? I know Drew does, but 2 of us worked at Stillwater's, and there was a dance club beneath us that had closed once Wisconsin changed the drinking age to 21. And we knew that it was empty, and so we started talking to the landlord, and he'd agreed to rent it to us. And then we got some other partners and some funding from Chicago, and we opened Bull Feathers on June 6th, 1992.
Wow.
And it was a college bar, college food, bar food, all the fried appetizers that you can think of, burgers, sandwiches, and beer, and Jägermeister.
And plenty of Jägermeister. I remember a few things about Bull Feathers. First, it was huge, just
it was enormous.
And it sort of was at the very beginning of, I don't even want to say the craft beer movement necessarily, but you guys had a lot of beers on tap, and that was relatively unique at the time. Like, wow,
We had a lot of taps. Yeah, we had a lot of taps there, which was unusual for a Wisconsin bar at that time.
Yeah.
And we didn't put any in. Those were already in when we got there.
What did you learn about running a business at 22 that you learned at Bull Feathers?
I don't remember, Jason.
Well, Wally owned another bar too. He
Right.
was also at Cafe Montmartre. And I remember, so I had moved away a year and I went to Minnesota because I was dating Andrea Haskowitz at the time. And I went back to be with her. And then we broke up and I moved back to Madison. And when I came back, I worked at Montmartre, and Wally was like the king of Madison. I mean, he knew like all the politicians. He was hanging out with Butch Fig, and like this was before garbage and stuff. And like I was just like, what has happened? Like I've been gone for a year. But I think you learned some lessons from that experience.
Yeah.
Like pick the right partners, maybe.
Count the money.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's true. Yeah. I knew a couple of people who tended bar at Bull Feathers. We may have gotten a few pitchers for free there. Well,
the thing with Bull Feathers was our business model was really, if you had money, that was more influential than a valid ID. And so it was kind of a younger bar. And what I do remember most is football Saturdays there, how much fun it was to see everybody hanging off of anything that they could hold on to, yelling Badger fight songs.
Well, that also then 92, that was right when the Badgers started getting good at football. So owning a business in the hospitality industry was just growth. Every year after that, football season became a bigger and bigger deal.
Yeah, that was the first year they won the Rose Bowl, and that was a big year.
Mm-hmm.
Drew, we talked a little bit about Montmartre before you joined us, and Wally said that you tended bar there.
I did. Yeah.
Had you had any bartending experience before that?
Nope. None whatsoever. No, I had no idea what I was doing. But there was different people that came into that bar, and it was like having been just a college student, because it was up by the Capitol, so people would come there and drink wine and all these different. I think it was the first time I had sort of experienced like, I don't know, that sort of real life kind of a thing, as before I was just a student. I forgot that Madison actually was the capital city until then, really.
Yeah.
I didn't know that those people. Go ahead, Jason.
I was just going to say to Drew, the story I was telling Wally beforehand is that there was a guy named Gabe Stolman who tended bar at Momar, and then subsequently moved to New York and opened maybe a series of 3 bars in Lower Manhattan that he modeled on Momar.
Oh, wow.
And they called this district Little Wisco because he hired bartenders from Wisconsin, knowing that they would be good in the hospitality game and cheerful, friendly, beer drinking bartenders. But it's been sort of a badge of honor for Madison to be like, yeah, we were pretty they modeled these cool bars after our cool bar.
That's cool.
Which Momar definitely was.
It was a great style. It was a great style with like little wood tables and candles and, really nice wood bar. And yeah, it was sweet. It was a cool place.
I think my favorite story from that bar, Drew, I don't know if you were working that night, but one night I had to tell Gary Glitter to get down off of a table and put his pants back on. This was before Gary Glitter took his clothes off in front of people he wasn't supposed to. So we all thought he was just an innocent, funny guy at the time.
And who is Gary Glitter for the non-badgers in the audience?
Gary Glitter he's a British rocker,
Mm-hmm.
and he's famous for that. I think it's called the da 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 da. Hey, da da da. That's his song.
Okay.
I don't know any of his other songs. I just
Rock and
recognize
Roll Part 100 or something.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know, but
played at every. Well, I think before Gary Glitter got into some trouble with, I believe, young girls. But before that, they played that song at every hockey game ever.
Chad, Chad Alt chimes in to help me. Gary Glitter was a perv.
Yeah.
Gary Glitter was a perv.
Succinctly put, yes.
And if he's still alive, he is still a perv.
Yeah. But yeah, Momar was that place. I mean, not garbage. That was their home turf, but it attracted celebrities that came through Madison, rock bands or whatever, because it was the coolest bar, it was the coolest spot.
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty cool. I used to name off all the people that I got to meet, but really, I just shook their hands, said hello, and they went on their way. Drew, maybe you got to hang out with them a little more because you worked there, but I remember Nirvana would come in without what? Because I'm just thinking of Dave Grohl because I know but like Soul Asylum would come in, and so it was just kind of cool to have those guys in there, even if they wanted nothing to do with us, but it was still cool.
Yeah, Butch used to come in a lot, and what was his guitarist name? I forget his name. He was hilarious.
Duke
Erickson.
Duke, yeah, he and Duke would come in a lot and drink gin daisies. I remember that. And
Duke is still. Butch does not live in Madison anymore, but Duke does, and Duke is still a downtown Madison fixture.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and actually, I'm pretty sure that Duke bought me out of Cafe.
Oh, really?
Of the Momar.
Huh.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he did, or was part of a group that did.
It turned into a restaurant that then, sadly, lit a fire one night, and they've rebuilt the building since then. There's a great restaurant in there now called Heritage Tavern, which is still, so it's still subterranean, brick walls and everything. It still looks cool, but the bar's on the different sides. It's not as funky, but fond memories of that place for sure.
Yeah, it was a nice spot.
Yeah, it was closed when I went. I was back in 2015, and it was closed at the time. Not closed down for good. It just wasn't open, so I couldn't get in there.
Well, a bunch of people are chiming in to say hello, including Eric Croteville, who you guys probably remember, saying,
"Oh yes,"
complimenting the jokes on their singing.
I'm curious about the Eric Croteville. We used to spend a lot of time at his house, and his parents had a fort, a wood fort, out in back of his house, and I'm just curious if that's still there.
All right, Eric, you'll have to tell us what the story is. All right, so Drew, you're in LA.
Yep.
how did you get out there, and what is it that you're doing out there?
Well, it was a very circuitous route, actually. Well, not circuitous so much. I after Madison, I moved to San Diego because I thought it would be awesome. I love the weather in South Africa, and so I was like seeking that out. So I went to San Diego, but I could not get a job that was paying. And Paul Beneke at the time was in Eugene, Oregon, and Russ Moser was going to move out there. And so I drove up to meet them, and ended up, Russ and I just went up into Portland and crashed on some people's couches for an inordinate amount of time. Like we way overstayed our welcome. So Jeff Abraham, do you remember him? And Jamie. Anyways, so that was fun. And then I ended up living there for 10 years. I ended up, I studied journalism at Madison, and when I graduated, by the time I did all that, I was doing some freelance writing, but the web started coming up, and I was like, that is what I want to do. And so I had been, I started interning at a place that taught digital video and stuff like that. They did Avid Media Composer, and they built a website, and so I helped. And then I ended up I was bartending at the time, and I ended up, figuring out, self-teaching myself HTML and all this stuff, and figuring out how to do that. And it was like a big business bar that I worked at, and I just started selling websites to all the customers that came in. And just started my own web design company. And then I met a couple other guys who were also from Orono. And we ended up having this web firm called Project Alpha. And we ran that for a while. And then raised venture funding. We built this tech, and then it all ended really badly. And then went out on my own. And then eventually, I was kind of burned out on that. I started a winery after I was burned out. After the whole .com crash, I was burned out. And then I was like, I need to go back to sunnier weather. I can't take this rain anymore. And then I just moved down here and took a screenwriting class, and I was doing a lot of work for Adobe at the time, just sort of consulting and freelance and stuff. So, and then I've been here since 2004.
Fantastic.
Okay, tell us a little bit more about your career now. I was doing research, as I try to do, and was looking at your LinkedIn page, and I was like, I don't even understand all of this. It sounded very, what are you doing now? And are you really writing a book?
Well, I started writing a book. Does that mean I'm still writing it? I don't know.
I know, it's touchy, I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. I was working on that for a bit. I haven't given up. I had done a webinar on, so what I do, I basically run a strategy and product strategy consulting. So we basically help companies figure out what apps to build, or if they have something, we'll help them to build it right, or build it better, or build more of it, So we just do basically like application consulting for mobile and web and AI and all that stuff. And then I'm really into blockchain, which is probably the confusing thing, because I'm always talking about that. And that's
Watching?
Blockchain, like Bitcoin and all that stuff.
Oh no, tell, that's so interesting.
Oh, I love it.
What is blockchain?
I'm
and
super
why
into it.
What is it?
So, I mean, basically, like Bitcoin, we've heard of Bitcoin, right? Yeah. And the whole idea was that you essentially use cryptography to secure a ledger, so that when all these computers secure ledger, no one can fake a transaction to say that I've taken this Bitcoin from this other person, because if they do, then that one will stand out, and then it will get discarded, and then they'll sync up to the rest of the blockchain. So it's like a decentralized thing. But what's cool about this tech, to me, I mean, the store of money and this method of data exchange is fascinating. But what's really interesting to me is you can control money using programming. So you can make these things called smart contracts. And essentially what they'll do is you can say, look, I'm going to put money into this contract, and when a series of conditions are met, then it will be released to this other person. So you can sort of create these contracts, and people are coming up with these all kinds of great models that sort of focus around this and ways to sort of use this technology to do things. It's pretty cool. It's fascinating.
Well, I'm going to have a follow-up question, Jason. Sorry. Because
Please.
I find it really curious. So do people who use these currencies want more people to start learning about them and using them? Are you because I'm like so curious, but I've never like met someone who actually uses them. Like, are you looking to find more users of the currency?
Yeah, so I mean, what's happening now is there's all these different projects, and there's like all these different blockchains. So there's Bitcoin is one, but then there's like Dogecoin Elon Musk was talking about, which is kind of it was a clone of Bitcoin that they made. It was like a joke, basically. It was made from this meme dog. But then people are actually using it and trading it, so it has value. But then there's one called Ethereum that was designed specifically to be like for programming, so that you actually can secure programming data inside of this. And then there's other ones. The Ripple came out, and Stellar and Cardano. And so it's very tribal. It's a very tribal sort of thing. And everyone's trying to convince developers to build their, what they call dApps, decentralized app, in their platform. But they all want everyone to use it more, because the prevailing theory is once mainstream buys into it, then it will be legitimized, and then it'll take away some of the volatility. Because you never know, some of these things, they just drop off the face of the earth. You know, it's great and it's fun, and there's lots of speculative trading, obviously, in these different coins and stuff.
So you use are you in the Bitcoin tribe? Or can you tell us without killing us?
Yeah. I like Bitcoin. I think, you know, the thing about Bitcoin is nobody really knows who invented it, right? So the inventor is this person or persons that went by the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto, and nobody knows who it is. And there's all kinds of theories. There's a couple people who have died who they think it might have been. There's actually a guy who has that name, who lived down the road from one of the suspects of who they think might have created this. That guy is always like taken out, and you see pictures of him and stuff, but he's like, I don't know why I don't know who this person is. So it's fascinating, but having no origin like that makes it actually like more legitimate in some ways, because there isn't a group that's promoting it, and there's no legality about it. Like all these other ones, like Ethereum had a coin offering where everyone bought in, and that's how they start it. They distribute all these coins, and everyone gives them money, and so that gives them value to start out. And so a lot of those, the SEC in the US have deemed illegal, or there are certain restrictions around them. Because Bitcoin didn't evolve in that way, they're kind of above the law. And it's just been around the longest. So a lot of people have centered around that. And it seems to be, I mean, it's worth like over 50,000 today for one Bitcoin. So it seems to be fairly legitimized, and institutional investors are starting to get into it, and hedge funds and things like that. So I don't know. I like there's other ones I like. There's one called STX. They're stacks. They have an interesting model because they're built around Bitcoin. So you can they have a better smart contract platform, so you can do more than you can in Bitcoin, but it's built sort of around the Bitcoin platforms. So you can use coins. It's smart. And then actually, if you can hold on to their coins, and by doing that, you earn Bitcoin. Like right now, it's around 20% per year interest just by holding the coin. They're an interesting model. I like them. There's another one called Chainlink. They're like an oracle, they call it. So one of the things of blockchain is you have to go out to get validation for these smart contracts. But as soon as you leave the decentralized world of the blockchain, then people can hack it. It becomes less secure. So this chain link is looking to essentially create these oracles so that you can do this in a more secure way. So I don't know, there's some interesting things. It's getting more mature. So I think it'll get to a point where more people will be able to use it, because right now it's still kind of confusing.
Definitely. Well, thanks so much. I have a message from Eric about the fort. Change topics again. The fort is gone.
Oh,
Down
boo.
for many reasons.
Many reasons. We'll get into that some other time.
Well, it wasn't because we got caught doing anything bad in there. So it must have been a structural reason.
Oh yeah, right. Of course. All right. So, all right, Wally, your turn. You're in Denver. How did you get to Denver, and what are you doing there?
I moved after I got out of the restaurants. I moved to Chicago, and I went to work for Mel Jacobson's godson.
No.
Yeah, I kept it in the Hopkins family. Drew's mom is actually good friends with Mel, and I stayed with Drew's family throughout college for holidays and summer breaks and things like that. And I wanted to get into money. I wanted to get into finance and Wall Street. I wanted to be a trader. And Mel said, well, my godson is a trader and he owns a firm in Chicago. So I went down there and interviewed, went to work for his son, and absolutely hated it. It was pit trading, and the place smelled. No one was nice. So I stuck that out for a couple of years and did the boat. Biological odors, like people that eat bad food and don't shower.
Yeah.
It wasn't nice.
I remember you telling me. I remember you telling me that the trading was like, it was like bartending. It was like bartending in a busy bar, only the drinks are really, really hard. I thought that was a funny analogy.
Okay, I have a Chicago question from the Peanut Gallery, Wally. Because there's lots of people watching, but I don't want to interrupt you guys because you have so much to tell us. But Rick Marker writes, Wally, exclamation point. Tell the folks how much fun we had in Chicago some 25 plus years ago.
Lots of fun. Yeah, Chicago was a really, really phenomenal place to be in your 20s. At that time, it was a ton of fun.
At that time, before the millennials burned it down, the north side of Chicago was a great place to be in the mid-90s.
I was there. Okay, well,
yeah, I lived in Wrigleyville.
Me too.
I lived right. Yeah, I lived at the corner of Grace and Kenmore, which was just 2 blocks north of Waveland, or 2 blocks north of left field at Wrigley. And it was lots and lots of fun. I had a great time. And after I was in the trading business, I just kind of did the bohemian thing. I'd made some money trading and thought I'll take some time and figure out what I want to do. And I took some time and figured nothing out. And then the woman I was seeing at the time lived in Denver, who she eventually became my wife. And so I moved out here just about 2001, 2002. And I've been here ever since.
You know, as Marnie and I often say, we stalk you guys on LinkedIn and Facebook and for whatever platforms you're on. But I noted that you're officiating swimming in some respect. What is that? How did you get involved in that, and what's that about?
My daughter is a pretty competitive swimmer, and she started. I've been an official for about 7 years now, and if you've ever been to a swim meet, they start Friday afternoon and they end Sunday night. So your kid might swim a total of less than 5 minutes per day in that time. And you need to spend time with the other parents. So I needed an excuse to get away from the other parents, to be totally honest. And
love it.
So I found out that you didn't really need to be a swimmer, or you didn't, my only accomplishment in a swimming pool is that I have not drowned in one yet. So they said you just need to go through some training and do that. And it's really become quite a hobby. There's a hierarchy of positions that you can aspire to, and swim meets are really run by the officials. So it's a pretty involved effort. And, being involved with USA Swimming has been it's been a real fun thing to do. I've met a lot of gold medal Olympians in lots of the meets that I've gone to. They'll come to speak to us, and we have stroke briefings where we talk about what kids have to do and what kids can't do in the certain strokes. So it's been pretty satisfying, and I didn't really realize how much I needed a hobby until I got one. So I've gotten pretty involved in it over the last few years.
And
Yeah,
so
that's cool.
we have some people in the audience who are interested in your children. So Drew, would you like to share anything about your young people?
Yeah, I have, my son's name is Leif, and he's 8 years old. He's in 2nd grade. This is his school room this year.
Yeah.
So he's home this year, which has been tough, but he's adapted. And he's just a super kind kid, really inquisitive, really smart, pretty nerdy, not super athletic, but a really good kid. And then my daughter is 4, and she's like a ball of fire. She's like totally, there's no stopping her. She's really intense, but really sweet too.
Yes, I can attest to that.
Thank you.
She's Luna.
And I've got a 16-year-old daughter who is a junior in high school. I am 4 years older than I was 2 years ago, given the high school experience these days. But she is a swimmer, as I mentioned. She's a pretty avid student as well. She's involved in lots of different high school senate. She speaks Chinese. She likes math, but doesn't want to study any STEM subjects in college. So
that's happening right
degree,
now.
kid.
At 16, these discussions are happening, I imagine.
Yeah, well, she really wants to swim in college. And junior year is when they start recruiting and you start talking to coaches, etc. So
yeah, that's great. That's really exciting. It's cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
All right, so we've covered this hobby thing a little bit with you, Wally, but one of the questions that we ask everybody who's on the show is, have you started to do anything during the pandemic, a hobby, or picked something up or changed your life in some way that maybe you think your classmates would like to hear about?
I've learned how to gain some weight during the COVID.
You had to learn how to do that?
Yeah, well, and so my company, we do digital transformation in the enterprise software and business architecture spaces. And when last February, we thought that, we had an all hands meeting and said, hey, things might get really bad during the pandemic. So don't buy that new car if you're thinking about it. And then everybody went remote because of COVID. And then everybody realized that they hadn't actually done digital transformation. Mm-hmm. So we got very, very busy very quickly. And we've tripled the size of the company in the last 9 months. So I've been sitting where I'm sitting now for the last 13, 14 months. And about 6 months ago, I don't have a watch that tracks my steps or anything. And I looked at the health app on my phone and found out that I'd been taking about 600 steps a day for 6 months, and decided that I need to make a change from that. So yeah, we're currently undergoing a new leaf here.
Stepping.
Yeah.
How about you, Drew? Anything new you want to share about your pandemic life?
Yeah, I mean, I had a similar experience because we do that kind of consulting. So, I mean, everybody was doubling down on digital and trying to figure out how to innovate and all that. So work has been good. I mean, our company has grown a lot. Very lucky in that way. my wife is an ER physician. So for her, things were really scary at first. In fact, I remember we went to, we had some friends in England and we met them and went to the Alps last year at the end of January. And it was actually on the border of Swiss and Italy. So it was there when we were there, but we didn't know that. And she was reading about this in China. She's like, I don't know, I have a bad feeling about this. I have a really bad feeling about this. And so, you know, it was a scary situation for us. There was potential of running out of PPE. They didn't know originally how it spread. You know, we had talked about me just taking the kids and going somewhere else. She had talked about moving into like a hotel. You know, we didn't know. So it was scary. And she and I, and they didn't know anything about the disease. So she and I did a lot of stuff to try and do whatever we could. I built a website called getusppe.com to help sort of match people who had maybe were feeling guilty about hoarding too many masks and wanted to give them back to doctors, having read that they were running out. And I ended up, another organization, getusppe.org, I ended up just merging with them and forwarding because they had a better website at the time. And then my wife and I she had gotten quoted by the New York Times talking about the pandemic and things and how there was no information exchange. And so Slack actually reached out, and a company called ID.me that does authentication, and they built a Slack instance and made it so that you could log in. You had to put in your number for being a doctor or an NP, and so validated that only doctors could be in there. So that was really cool, and there was a lot of cool things that happened in that way. And you know, for me, looking back as things progressed, I was sort of inspired by how many people were changing and innovating and the stuff that was happening. And I mean, I was depressed too because the whole thing sucks, but I was trying to find inspiration, let's put it that way. So, you know, I did some webinars. I did one that I really liked that was, you know, I had the VP of design from Hulu, and I had a friend of ours who's, she was a showrunner for Jane the Virgin. And then another guy who did innovation consulting and just talked about like, how do you find hope and change and opportunity in uncertainty. And so I've been trying to do things like that just to sort of keep my head up, you know, and that kind of thing. I don't know. It's been a weird year for sure.
Yeah, understatement. Well, we talked at the top about how you're a couple of Gatewood guys, and you know, that's my memories of you guys both. You know, go back to those. You know, what a great time we had growing. A few years ago, I remember Todd Steiner and I had beers in Madison, and he was talking about how, I think he was moving at the time, and he was talking about how he wanted his kids to go to a school that was just like ours. And I said, yeah, I don't know that those schools exist anymore, Todd. Like, I don't, you know, we were in a pretty good place. And, you know, just that era that we had of growing up there in that time in Minnetonka, and, you know, going to school at Gatewood was pretty great. Like, we had a pretty fun childhood. And I remember both of you guys.
You know, it really wasn't, and
mixing it up.
One of the interesting things about Gatewood as a school, if those who went there or have been there, but it was sort of an experimental building. Mm-hmm. Drew, I think your mom even told me this, that in grades 3 through 6, we had the pods.
Yeah.
And
Open
the pods
concept.
were just this huge, gigantic room that had single wall partitions. The classrooms didn't have doorways, so they had 3 or 4 classrooms in this gigantic room, and then a social area that everyone went when, you know, we watched movies or things like that. And then all the pods exited out into the library.
Yeah.
And it was just a pretty unique social experience for going to school. And I've always thought that, and I think building is similar to that, but in how it was structured. But I remember hearing that Hopkins High School was designed as a shopping mall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that
I don't
too.
know if
I
anyone else
don't know if
worked there.
that's true or not. I remember that.
Okay, this is something we should investigate, Jason.
Mhm.
Yeah. But I totally think that's true. And that open concept, which I think was big in that, 70s, late 70s era, it's probably been rejected by now or, moved on. But we were a tight knit group, a class, and it wasn't just the kids in your class. You knew everybody in the grade, and maybe those open concepts.
Do they call it the quad at Hopkins High School? I don't know what they call it.
The mall?
The mall. Like
Mall.
my best memories of Hopkins High School are hanging out in the mall.
Yeah.
Before class. I mean, and if you were an introvert, it probably sucked, but I just thought it was great because I knew you didn't have to roam through halls to find anybody.
Yeah.
And everybody was down there, and everybody just seemed to be having a pretty good time. And I think that the social aspect was pretty significant, and I don't know any other high schools that were similar to that.
Yeah, that's true. All the old schools were these warrens of hallways. I don't know if you've been, you go to your daughter's high school at all, Wally? It's horrifying.
I've been in for lots of parent events, and it's a beautiful old building, but it's 5 stories high and it's hallways.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, so Drew, somebody's in here reminding us that maybe you went to Harley Hopkins or Catherine Curran. You moved to Gatewood, right?
Yeah, I did. I moved to Gatewood in 5th grade. I went to Harley from kindergarten until then.
Likes math but doesn't want to study.
Stacy Semler for the win. Drew Falkman Trivia Winner Award. Well, since we're at school, I just was wondering if either of you have a teacher that influenced you that you'd like to share with us. It's okay if you don't.
God, there was my 7th grade English teacher, and I cannot remember her name now. It's horrible. But she was
Gerberding?
No, I remember Mrs. Gerberding, but that wasn't it, I don't think. But she taught mythology.
Oh yeah.
And she was a great teacher. I mean, she really I felt that was it was the first time I think where I really discovered like a teacher who wanted me to sort of go deeper and explore something, like inspired me to go deeper and go sort of beyond just getting the assignment done and doing all that. I mean, I'm sure there were other times when that kind of happened, but this was like, I got really excited about that class and felt really sort of supported. I should look that up and find her name.
Yeah, maybe
Honor her
so.
name.
How about you, Wally? Is there anyone
I
you
don't
remember?
I don't remember the teacher's name, but he was a social studies or a history teacher, I think. And his room was in the social studies department. He went all the way back at Hopkins High in the social studies department and took a left. That was his room, and I remember he had a poster on the wall of a beach, and then the saying "Let it be" was on the poster, and it took me forever to figure out like why it wasn't a Beatles reference. But I want to say his name was Mr. Kremen or Kremen, but I liked him a lot. But for names of teachers, I have a lot of names of teachers.
It's okay. I mean, I find one of these, I find it interesting, the shards of memories. Like you remember a poster.
Yeah, right.
Important.
These visuals.
Okay.
Jim Kurtz. I love Jim Kurtz. If you remember him, he was in West Junior High. He was I think he taught social. He was also the ski coach in high school. And then he was maybe he taught at Hopkins High then. He must have, huh?
He was the canoe trip guy, right?
Yeah, he did the canoe trips, which were amazing. We did one in English River up in Canada.
Did any of you participate in the sit-in?
Sorry, Marty.
We've talked about the sit-in. Well, we've been talking about, no one can remember how No one has any memory of how the tennis ball fight started. Who engineered the tennis ball fight, which
See,
led to
Ramon-
the sit-in?
Ramon knows, but I think he can't tell us.
Yeah, because I remember participating in the sit-in, not particularly caring that they had canceled the games,
Right.
and I was not a participant in the tennis ball fight either. That sort of happened. I don't even know if I saw a tennis ball fly through the air, but so I don't know either.
It has a lot of, there are these moments that we had in high school where you sort of got, you realize that you could, I don't want to say stand up to authority necessarily, but question authority. And not that sit-in was about anything important or that we accomplished anything, but just the fact that it happened. And you look at like the radical movements, when you study them in college or whatever, and you realize because, it was like a lot of the kids from the North Door sort of started that sit-in and we all joined them. They were the radicals and then they brought the rest of us along with them. Makes sense.
I remember that when it was over, I thought, oh crap, now I've got an absence.
Oh,
I got to figure out what to do with this absence. And the teacher that I had, was a teacher I really didn't like at all. And the guy frightened me. I won't mention his name, but I thought I got to get rid of this absence. So I talked to him and I said, hey, I went to the sit-in and I have an absence. And he said, well, look, if you write a 1-page essay on how much my work has helped you become a better person, I'll let you out of the absence. And I just thought, I am a rebel without a spine here because I'm going to write this paper. I can't stand this guy. I think he's trying to build a cult, and I'm going to write a paper about how I think he's a great guy so that I don't have an absence. So
lessons learned. These are
early
important
lessons.
things.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, you guys have known each other for a really long time, Wally and Drew. Is there anything you want to ask each other or say as we're kind of wrapping up?
Nice to see you, buddy.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, I miss seeing you. I can't wait to
Yeah.
travel again. It'll be nice.
Yeah.
Marnie, who's coming up on the
Let me
KHOP88
screen. It is an amazing lineup. I don't have them going on during the interviews because I want to pay full attention.
No, I got it. I think it's, yeah.
Okie dokie. Well, next week is episode 43. I have confirmed Laura Roth Green, Marcy Hall, and Julie Steelman. March 23rd, Eric Caval-Seth and a mystery guest. April 6th, Bonnie Blader and her mystery guests. April 13th, the softball team. April 20th, Katie Keene and pals. May 4th, Jim Keene and Brian Olson. May 11th, we have confirmed Eric Haugen will interview the football team. I'll be taking notes. And May 18th, of course, is my 50th birthday party. Bring your own cake, Jason. And everyone, don't forget, we are also on Instagram.
That's right. Follow the Instagram for untold stuff. Well,
Well,
yeah, you guys, it was great seeing both of you guys.
Yeah, likewise,
likewise.
definitely. And thanks for doing this. I mean, this is such
this
a
is
cool,
really
fun thing to see.
pretty nice.
And yeah, it's a really it's just a really great idea that you guys have done and carried through for 43 episodes. That's crazy.
Yeah, God, right?
I didn't think it would last this long.
No.
But it's a little bit as fun as the reunions.
Right.
Maybe more for some of us. It's a little bit easier. You can check the YouTube channel. Watch you guys more than once to check everything out. So yes, we are very grateful for both of you. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. This was great.
Marnie, we'll see you next Tuesday night. Everybody else, stay safe.
Be safe.
Take care.
See you on Tuesday. Good night, Drew.